I'm here! I'm here! I'm here!
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You missed the delivery. But it's okay. Making the baby's the fun part.
What is going on? Well, we've got positive traits on the left-hand side. We're going to have negative traits on the right-hand side. It's important to remember with these negative traits, we're ranking them in order of which is the most cost-effective negative trait to have, which one is best to put on your population, because it gives us a refund of points that we can then spend on more positive traits. So if a negative trait isn't very important, it doesn't damage our species very much, that's absolutely fine, and we really want to give it to our pops, want to give it to our machines, and that way we can end up with a better overall species. First up is the F tier, the lowest of the low. Traits in this tier, they are not only worse than other traits, they are an active hindrance to you if you take them. First up in the F tier from the positive traits, we have recycled. This costs 2 trait points and will give you a minus 20% to pop assembly cost. Why is it crap? Why is it down here? Well, reducing your pop assembly cost, which is 1 alloy per replicator job, or 2 alloys in the case of a roboticist, is very marginal overall. That tiny change in your alloy upkeep for assembly is not really going to help your overall civilization. And by taking recycled, you're no longer able to take the trait luxurious, which is quite a nice 2-pointer for robot species. Streamlined protocols gives your pops minus 10% empire sprawl at the cost of 2 trait points. Now, if you've watched any of these other videos, you'll know that having an empire sprawl reduction right at the start of the game is completely pointless, and as the game goes on, it is a little bit less than completely pointless, but it's still not very helpful. But why would I put this in F tier? It doesn't seem to be like an overall hindrance. Well, just like recycled, by taking streamlined protocols, it prohibits you taking another trait, that trait being high bandwidth, which we'll get to later, and that trait is something we almost certainly want to have on our robots. Jumping over to the negative side of F tier, what we have here are traits which we absolutely do not want to have on our population. We don't want them anywhere near our population. Uncanny, this one is available only to machine species, that is species in a machine intelligence hive mind. This gives you minus 20% amenities from jobs and refunds a single trait point. We really want to be minimizing the number of maintenance drones we have, so by taking Uncanny, not only does it increase the number of maintenance drones we will be needing across the Empire, which is bad, they are to all intents and purposes lost pops, but it is also prohibiting us from taking something much better. Custom made refunds a single trait point and gives us minus 15% to pop assembly speed. That means that our population will be growing at a reduced rate. We do not want to do anything that will reduce our population growth. In Stellaris, having more pops means you can support a larger economy, which means you can do more things. You can have more science income, you can support a larger fleet. It is the basis for everything and the one resource we always want to be maximizing. If you're enjoying this video, please replicate that like button. Now we're in the C tier. These are still not great, much better options available, but they aren't always necessarily a hindrance for you. Domestic protocols is the first trait you can only get access to if you are mechanical. What do I mean by mechanical? Well, if you are a robot created by a biological empire, disgusting I know, but if you are, you get the mechanical trait rather than the machine trait. So everything on this list which is mechanical can only be given to those pops created by a squishy biological empire or an empire that has synthetically ascended. Domestic protocols increases your amenities from jobs output by 20%, and it means that your robots can be employed in servant jobs if they are unemployed and you have set the policy of AI rights to AI servitude. Now you may be a little confused, usually any trait with plus 20% amenities from jobs would be pushed up right to the top. Why have I got this one all the way down here? Well, basically, it's all to do with timing. You can only get access to domestic protocols once you've researched the droids technology, so your robots do not start out with access to this. That means that you will already have a biological species and they will be working all of your specialists as well as ruler type jobs. That means they will be the ones producing your amenities, so I suspect you should already have a bonus to your amenities output from your regular biological pops. They should have the charismatic trait, and therefore you really won't find this one very useful. This isn't the purpose of a regular robot pop in your empire. Also, robot pops specifically take a much lower amenities upkeep than regular biopops if you have them under AI servitude, so you're probably not going to have any amenities issues anyway. Much later in the game, it could be useful if you've synthetically ascended to give some pops this trait, but it's not entirely necessary, and that's why it ends up down here in the C tier. Double jointed is only a single point and it gives your pops minus 10% housing usage. However, we have to remember that for machine species, we don't really care, if you're a machine intelligence, about the carrying capacity of a planet because you're not affected by logistic pop growth. That means the only thing that you are affected by is when your population reaches the same number of pops as your available housing, and then from there you can simply build more housing or move those pops off world. It's never going to impact your growth speed. On the other hand, if you're a biological race with some robots you've built, these robots base take only 0.5 housing anyway, so reducing that by 10% is really not much of an impact either. Enhanced memory costs us 2 trait points and it increases our leader level cap by 2. Why have I got it all the way down here in C tier? Well, it is true that robotic pops are immortal if you're a machine intelligence race, and that means that you will be always, unless they die due to an accident, gaining XP, so you want to have the maximum leader level cap possible. I absolutely agree. However, the ease with which you can get your hands on leader level cap bonuses in the game through traditions as well as some technologies and policies means that leader level cap inside of a trait is a waste of trait points. You really don't need it here. Yes, there may come a scenario in which you've not managed everything perfectly and you are stuck at a max cap of 5 or 6 or 7 for a few months or years and you lose a bit of XP. But overall, I'd much rather spend these 2 trait points on something much more valuable. In addition to that, as you unlock technologies and traditions, you will quite quickly reach that maximum leader level cap of 10, at which point enhanced memory is completely useless and superfluous. Harvesters cost 2 trait points and gives us plus 15% food output from our jobs. It is also only available to mechanical species. Now I have to admit, I almost considered putting this in the F tier, and not for the reason you think. Yes, if you've watched the other videos on this channel, you will know that I loathe having any pops that produce food. And that's why it's down in C tier here. You really shouldn't have any, or many at least, food producing jobs. If you are going for a synthetic route, if you're building lots and lots of robots, you shouldn't have much food upkeep. You should be able to support your entire population through hydroponics based, star based building and the market. And then my other issue is how similar this one looks to power drills. The number of times I have tried to specialize my species, I thought I had selected power drills, which gives you plus 15% minerals from jobs, and instead I had selected harvesters. I cannot tell you. If it were up to me, I would remove this civic from the game, probably entirely, simply because of the pain it has caused. Finally, there is learning algorithms. This is only 1 point and it gives us plus 25% leader experience gain. Now, the issue with leader experience gain is that yes, you are going to reach the level above faster than if you didn't have this, but the total amount of time spent 1 level higher, that is with a slightly better bonus from that leader, is quite minimal. It does get longer the higher level you get to, but as you're getting to higher levels, you will have researched more technologies in the game which are going to be giving you leader experience gain bonuses, and therefore, just like the enhanced memory, you really don't want this as a trait. On the negative side, we have repurposed hardware, which is the opposite to learning algorithms. Why oh why though is this not higher up in the negatives, I might hear you ask? Well, having a minus 25% to your leader experience gain at the beginning of the game, that's definitely a little bit of a handicap. The inverse of having minus 25% is going to keep you there for quite a bit longer than the gain of having a plus 25%. It's really not something I'd recommend you try out, though of course as time goes on this will become less and less of an issue as you go up the tradition and research trees. And let me know what you think about this list so far. If there's anything you disagree with, anything you think is in the wrong place, please write it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. I will try to read and respond to all of the comments that are placed on this video in the first few hours after its release. So if you've got anything you want to ask me, even if it's not about machine traits, please write a comment. Okay, we've reached it, the B tier. In this tier we have some traits that are really quite alright, but they are not necessarily the best. There are some situations they can be really good in, whereas sometimes they're just very mediocre. Durable costs us only a single trait point and it decreases our upkeep by 10%. Why have I got this down in the B tier? That would sound quite nice. Well, reducing your upkeep from the point of view of a synthetic or a biological race with robots isn't necessarily that useful to have as a trait, as there are many other ways in the game of reducing your robot upkeep. This will equate to basically 1 free upkeep worth of pop every 10 pops. Next up is loyalty circuits. Again, this is only available to mechanical species. It gives you, for 2 trait points, plus 10% happiness. Why is this down here in the B tier? Why isn't it further up? Well, assuming that you are mechanical, let's say you haven't synthetically ascended yet, well, this plus 10% happiness is only going to boost some of your population, so it won't be an overall 10% happiness buff to the planet. And even if it is a happiness buff overall to the planet, this is not going to be a plus 6% to resources. This extra 10% happiness is not equivalent to plus 10% stability. And for that reason, it's going to stay down slightly lower here in the B tier. If it was, say, a plus 5 or plus 10 to stability, it might go a bit further up, but where it is, I think is comfortable. I've talked about this trait before. Power drills cost 2 points and gives you plus 15% to your mineral output from jobs. It sits here in the B tier because there are other traits we'd prefer to have that are higher up. We also won't necessarily have a majority of our pops working mining jobs. We'll probably have quite a high number of pops working energy jobs, but not this mineral producing job. It's really only important to us for our alloys and construction of buildings, districts, and star type things. So we're talking the mining bases, your research outposts, etc. Propaganda machines is only available to mechanical pops. It gives us, for a single point, plus 15% unity output from jobs. This makes it better than the biological equivalent. However, that's not going to push it over into the A tier. It is still unity that it's outputting, and it's only doing that for non-hive mind species. If you could get this in your Gestalt consciousness, then I think it could go up to the A tier, absolutely, but in this case, no, it's staying here. The only negative trait in the B tier is high maintenance. This is the flip side of durable. For a point refunded, we get plus 10% to our robot upkeep, and it sits in the B tier for the same reasons that durable sits here. Welcome to the A tier. This tier is really where we are at. Now, we are actually going to almost always have at least 1 trait from this tier, I would recommend, though if these aren't always go-to automatic picks, we're now getting down to a case of preference, and that's why we have the traits here that we do. First up, storming into the A tier, is efficient processors. This costs a whopping 3 points, the most expensive machine trait in the game, but it gives you a plus 5% resources from jobs across the board. This is a much better version of strong from the biological traits, and actually it's one of my personal favorites. Put this trait on your machines and forget about them. Don't worry about what they're doing because they're always going to be getting a bonus. This is the easiest and least micro-intensive way of specializing your robots. But if we take that one, we almost certainly can't take both of the next two. What are the next two? Well, logic engines cost 2 points. and gives us plus 10% research output. I am a massive fan of the biological version of this, intelligent. I'm a massive fan of logic engines as well. Research output is crucial to an empire's survival. You want to be rushing at that tech. It is going to help you across every single aspect of this game. However, with the way that machines work and machine intelligences specifically, you might not put this on your hive mind because you might want something else instead, something to better balance your economy and therefore be able to put more drones into research and have a less efficient drone pop researching, but more research output overall. I talked about better economy. Well, here we are, superconductive, 2 points plus 15% energy credits from jobs. There are so many machine jobs, if you are a Gestalt consciousness, that require energy upkeep. We're looking at our researchers, we're looking at our coordinators, we're looking at our evaluators, even our population require energy upkeep. For that reason, this plus 15% is very, very valuable to your economy as a machine intelligence. If you are not a machine intelligence, if you are simply mechanical, it can also be very useful to put this on your pops. You might want to have only workers being robots, and therefore you might want to have lots of robots working lots of technician jobs. It is a fantastic trait to pick, and it is very rare that you go wrong with it. I almost considered putting this up to the S tier. The reason it is all the way down here in A tier is that it isn't always an auto include for me, because if you're taking efficient processors, you're not really going to have the points to take this as well based on what is in the A tier. With the A tier negative traits, again, this comes down a little bit to personal preference. For me, I really like bulky because if I'm a machine intelligence, that plus 10% housing usage from my pops is really pretty irrelevant. I'm also going to get a free point back. That's pretty great. The other A tier is luxurious. This is going to refund you 2 points, but it will increase your pop assembly cost by 20%. If you need the points, this can be a really useful pick to take. However, if you don't need the points, I'd really recommend staying away from this. You don't want to be burning through your alloys that much. It is going to be a little bit painful to increase this upkeep by 20% across the board for all of your planets, for all of your assembly jobs. It's been a long climb, but we have now reached the summit. Welcome to the best of the best, the S tier. First up, we have the only trait which is only available to machine intelligence pops, that is emotion emulators. For just a single point, they are going to be getting plus 20% amenities from jobs. That makes emotion emulators an auto pick for any Gestalt hive mind machine intelligence. You should always be reducing the number of maintenance drones you have, and for just a single point, how could you possibly say no? No matter whether you were built by other machines or you were built by other biologicals, you want to be a mass-produced robot. This is going to cost 1 point and give you plus 15% pop assembly speed. You should always choose this trait on your pops. Never leave home without plus 15% pop assembly speed. Pops are the king of resources in Stellaris at the moment. I mean, sometimes we wish they weren't. They cause late game hell and late game lag. If you want to reduce your late game lag, maybe don't take this. But if you want to play the game well, if you want to have the best possible start, pop assembly speed plus 15% is definitely not a bad way to go. This is, in my opinion, the best machine trait in the game. And what sits in our S tier over here for the negative traits? Well, you've probably guessed already, that's high bandwidth. For 2 points, we only increase our Empire Sprawl by 10% from pops. This is laughably cheap. It's basically free. It's completely free at the start of the game, and as the game goes on, it's basically free. You're really not going to have to worry about it. If you do need to worry about it, you could choose to mod it out a little bit later, but it's probably better to take this, take the extra positive traits you will get, build up your empire to be bigger, better, and stronger from an economic point of view, and then get more pops working jobs to increase your administrative cap and completely ignore an offset empire sprawl. So you've picked your traits, but what on earth should you do for your machine intelligence civics? If you want to know what I think about machine intelligence civics, click the video on screen now.